Now, at that rally in New Hampshire today, tax cuts for new small businesses was a main focus. For a cost-benefit analysis of this proposed policy, we have Brandon Arnold, the Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union. Arnold, thank you very much for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Harris is campaigning in New Hampshire today. She's telling voters that if she's elected, she'll propose a $50,000 tax cut for new small businesses. Now, what kind of impact would this policy have for business owners, and would it create more jobs and lower prices?
So I've been very critical of Kamala Harris's tax policies in the past. The desire to raise the corporate tax rate, for instance, I think is really bad policy. But on this, she seems to be tacking more toward the center. And I do think this tax deduction, this expanded tax deduction, would help small businesses, would help startups. So I think this is a move to the middle here that probably does resonate well with American voters here who do want to see more small businesses and more vibrancy in our small business community, more startups, more companies coming online. This certainly helps by providing a deduction to smaller businesses that are just getting off the gate.
Is there any downside to this policy? Obviously, it would encourage more people to start new businesses, but is there a problem with too many people doing so?
No, I don't think there's a real problem as long as they're not gaming the system and taking advantage of it. It does come with a hefty price tag. I've seen it priced out, early estimates, even though we don't have much in the way of policy details, that it could cost tens of billions of dollars. Obviously, we have a $35 trillion or so national debt. So when you do make proposals like this to lower taxes, I think the fiscally responsible thing to do is to provide ways to pay for it, ideally in the form of reducing other programs, unnecessary spending in the federal government. I doubt she'll do this because this is a presidential campaign and she doesn't want to make those tough choices. But it would be nice to see some more fiscal responsibility and a movement toward a more balanced federal budget.
Now, Trump-era tax cuts are coming to an end next year. They lowered the corporate rate and individual taxes across the board. What were the impacts of this policy now that we've seen it play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 2017 provided a huge boost for the economy, lowering the corporate rate from 35% down to 21%. We've seen almost the phenomenon of corporate inversions where companies would move their headquarters or certain operations overseas. That's basically disappeared, and we've seen more corporate activity here as well as small business activity here. We talk about Kamala Harris's small business tax plan here, which, again, I think does have a lot of merit attached to it. Well, I think Trump's was actually a little bit better because it created a 20% deduction for small businesses for pass-through entities that pay taxes on the individual schedule rather than on the corporate schedule. It also lowered those corporate rates. Kamala needs to embrace some of these components here. I know she doesn't want to do anything that is remotely close to what Trump did, but when it comes to cutting taxes for small businesses, that ought to be a bipartisan endeavor. And I think those proposals, some of which are going to expire, those small business provisions will expire in their entirety at the end of 2025. It'd be nice to see some leadership from both the left and the right on making sure our small business community is vibrant and can compete not just with larger companies domestically, but also overseas as we do business on a global basis.
Brandon Arnold, Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union, thank you very much for your insight here today.
Thanks for having me.